This old trail in the New Mexico desert is all that's left here of the Spanish King's Royal Highway, the first Camino Real in America, forged across the desolate landscape centuries ago. The rugged trail is a remnant of El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro, the oldest and longest roadway in the Americas. In 1598, following ancient Native American footpaths, Spanish colonists, led by the conquistador Don Juan de Oñate, entered what is today the American Southwest. As the Oñate Expedition followed the river north, it provided fresh water, wildlife, and firewood. It was an arduous task, traveling with 80 carretas, or ox carts, piled high with supplies. Carts and wagons could not pass where the river had settled against a mountain range, forming canyons and creating miles of uneven arroyos. So, the Spanish expedition took a risky alternate route here, near modern-day Fort Selden, New Mexico.
Entering New Mexico, the trail followed the Rio Grande north, establishing a paraje or a campsite about every day of travel. This is the Paraje Robledo, and this is where they built Fort Selden in the later days of the trail to protect the travelers and the caravans through the Jornada de Muerto.
Oñate was leading subjects of King Felipe II of Spain north from Mexico City to establish a new Mexico. The crown wanted to expand Spain's territory and lay claim to vast areas of land. They planned to populate remote regions along the Rio Grande with Spanish settlers. Oñate's caravan included soldier farmers and their families, servants, slaves, and laborers. About 500 people in all. Catholic priests of the Franciscan order came to convert and organize the native population. Their mission was to Christianize the Indians and make them productive workers, growing crops and producing goods for the colony and New Spain. Oñate's 1598 expedition into Spain's northern territory was the first organized conquest of land in today's American Southwest, years before the English settlers arrived at Jamestown, Virginia, or the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. The trail they opened across the desert and along the Rio Grande was the lifeline of the Spanish colonial system for hundreds of years. It was later used by Mexican travelers, American stagecoach lines, railroads, and today, modern highways, like Interstate 25 here in southern New Mexico.
El Camino Real, the Royal Road, was the main highway into and out of New Mexico for over 300 years. This is the beginning of the famed and waterless Jornada de Muerto.
This desert segment of El Camino Real is abandoned now and almost forgotten. But the road's influence on the landscape, history, and culture of the Southwest is immeasurable. Once the northbound travelers on El Camino Real managed to get past the 90 miles of the Jornada del Muerto without water, they then encountered some very steep hills and difficult terrain in the Socorro, New Mexico area. This is the Black Mesa, a landmark on El Camino Real that caravans had to go around to get to the Rio Grande. Another trail obstacle near Socorro was Parida Hill. Oxen had to be double-teamed to get the carretas up this hill. After that, the next and last major problem going north was Bajada Hill, a winding road that took the caravans up to the plain where Santa Fe is located. From that hill, it was another 12 or so miles to Santa Fe, capital of New Mexico. It was originally established in 1610 by Spanish Governor General Don Pedro de Peralta.
Once the Oñate Expedition arrived in the far north, the intent was to establish an entirely new colony in the New World. The Pueblo people became subjects of the Spanish king, like it or not, and the soldiers and the priests forced these local people into an unfamiliar colonial system of labor.
That often resulted in violence. The Spanish, with their superior iron armor and guns, were almost always victorious over the Pueblo Indians and their clubs, bows, and arrows. The Spanish established new institutions with the colonization of the North. Caravans of goods and supplies began making the 3-month trek between Mexico City and Santa Fe to supply remote missions and outposts. Tools and manufactured goods were carried north, and animal hides and raw materials were carried south. The Spanish colonial system in New Mexico was stable for 8 decades until the Pueblo Indians revolted in August of 1680. Many Spaniards were killed, and 2,000 survivors fled New Mexico, escaping south on the Camino Real to Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe Mission in El Paso del Norte. The Guadalupe Mission, founded in 1659, was overwhelmed by the refugees, so new settlements were established downriver, in what is now El Paso's lower valley. Tigua Indians were resettled at the Isleta Mission. Piro and Tompiro Indians were placed at Mission Sinicu and Mission Socorro, and a new mission of colonial government was established at San Lorenzo. The Isleta Mission, established in 1682, is the oldest continuously operating Catholic church in Texas. Oñate crossed the Rio Grande at a site near downtown El Paso. It is commemorated by several historical markers. The actual crossing is now fenced off by the border wall. From there, the Royal Road wound through El Paso Canyon and followed the Rio Grande north.
El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro was part of Spain's intercontinental network of land and maritime routes throughout North and South America. This first major road from the southern part of Mexico to the far northern portion of the frontier covers more than 1,600 miles.
About 400 miles of El Camino Real pass through the United States and have been designated as a National Historic Trail. Most of the original trail lies within Mexico. Some sites and cities along the Mexican section were declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 2010. Many trail segments have become major modern highways in Mexico and the United States.
CARTA is an acronym for the El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro Trail Association. Our job is to inform and educate the public about the history and the stories of the trail and how it contributed to the development of our region. We're very proud of our history in New Mexico, and if you'd like to join us, here's the way to do it.
The first Camino Real in America shaped the landscape, culture, economy, and history of today's American Southwest. Its importance cannot be overstated. Perhaps the most significant early road in North America, El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro remains a living, thriving trail, still shaping the region's landscape and culture.